Listen to. I'm hitting record right now. Hey, I'm Jason Morris, and tonight, what um what we're going to talk about is what to do if you are a part-time agent. And this I put part-time agent here. Now, this applies if you're an agent that maybe you're a stay-at-home mom, stay-at-home dad. Maybe you're somebody that you're thinking about getting a full-time job, right? Or maybe you're thinking about quitting the business, getting a full time job, or decreasing how much time you're working in the business to get a full time job. You know, but what I want to do tonight is focus on the people that are not doing real estate full time, right? And I think that's a lot of agents right now, especially Mark was going crazy, 6 months ago. Now we're going into a little bit of a market, I believe, starting to move sideways, and I think it's doing it all over the country. You know, so and it seems like it's not just that's not just localized to one market or two markets, right? It seems like it's everywhere. So, guys, now let me ask you. So, why exactly? And if you would answer in the comments for me, put your answer in the comments. So, why exactly did you get into the real estate business? What made you decide to go through the whole thing, get licensed, and decide to get in the real estate business? So we're gonna ask. I got a few hard questions. I mean, I'll tell you my story. I was in college. I went to Winthrop University, and I was in I was a junior in college, and I was kind of at the end of that between my junior and senior year, and I was kind of thinking about what was I gonna do, and you know, my dad was a contractor, and I'd been around a lot of people with him growing up and stuff. And I was thinking, my friends that were graduating college they weren't making much money. They were making $25,000 a year. Every now and then you'd hear about somebody making 30,000 a year with their first job, and it'd be like, oh wow, that person's got a really good first job, right? With a degree in integrated marketing. And what I started doing was I started looking at my dad's friends, which one of them, at least to me at the time, I mean, I was 20, 21, 22 years old, at least to me at the time, which one of them really made money. And it seemed like they were either contractors, insurance brokers, real estate agents, and that seemed to be about it. Um, and then on top of it, I ended up meeting this lady that she told me that she was a real estate agent down in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And what she did was she worked for a company. She hung out all day on the ocean. She unlocked some condos, and every time she sold one, she made $6,000 to $8,000. So in my mind, I was going, man, I could sell like 4 or 5 of these things a year and make more than what my friends were graduating college making. You know, so I looked at it as I wasn't really happy with the idea of going to work for a marketing company. I wasn't really happy with that, and I wasn't really happy with the idea of making $25,000 a year. I mean, even then, I mean that was 2003. Even 15 years ago, $25,000 a year was not a lot of money. And guys, I'll tell you, my first year in the real estate business, when I first moved to Myrtle Beach and got licensed and all that stuff, my first year in the real estate business, my goal was I want to make $50,000 a year, which I know that sounds really, really small. And to be honest with you, when I made $50,000 a year, it wasn't near as much money as what I thought it was. But I got some good answers here. Patrick wanted freedom, more money, loves houses. Dan wanted to make more money, but more than 100,000 a year specifically. I think it's very doable. Nicole, total control of income. I think that's fantastic. Jim, been doing it for 10 years, 5 full. Struggling this year, so went back to full time, still closing deals every other month on average, need steady income. And I understand, what I've seen a lot of agents do that over the years where they went from full time to part time in the real estate business. John wanted to be his own boss. I think, man, that's fantastic ideas. More money plus support my kids' education. I think that's fantastic, Lydia. I think that I think sometimes we need to think back at that reason why we got into the business and why we went through it. Because to be honest with you, it's kind of expensive and it's kind of time consuming just to get your license. You know what I mean? It's an accomplishment just to get your license. I know that we all talk about the number of agents in the business and how they should make it harder and all that stuff, but quite honestly, between financially time, most people don't have 2 or 3 weeks to be able to take off work to go to school, to get licensed. So it is quite an accomplishment just to go through that stuff to get licensed. Congratulations. Then join the board and join NAR and all that stuff. It's even more money. You know what I mean? You guys sacrificed to be where you are today. And that's the truth. You sacrificed to be where you are today. And I think that we need to be reminded of that. And we need to remember that sometimes, especially during those times that we're struggling some. So here's one of the things that I've talked about in my group coaching a lot is that, a lot of us are settling, and a lot of us are settling in life, and we're settling with our goals, and I think a lot of that has to do with the culture we live in, the way we grew up. Maybe it was a religion that you're part of, but a lot of us, settle with our goals. It's kind of like how we settle for dinner with our spouse. Hey, we don't really want a cheeseburger, but it's quick and it's on the way home. We can just pick it up from McDonald's, right? But I think that a lot of us are settling with a lot of things in our lives, right? We're settling with our goals too. And I want you to think about that. What is your real goal? I think this is a question that even if you're part-time, what is your real goal? I see a lot of part-time people. Well, I see full-time people do this too, but I see a lot of part-time people. They get licensed and they just don't have a goal, or they don't have any direction. And that's one of the things that's really kind of crazy. If you don't have a goal, then you don't really know where you're going. They're happy if they close one deal a year. Some of them are happy. Some agents are just happy being part of the group. You know what I mean? But what's your real goal? Was it to quit the job that you're at that maybe you hate, right? Was it to be able to have the freedom so that you can, be off in the afternoons, do things with your kids? Maybe you can pay for your kids' college, make extra money, pay off your house, get out of debt. I mean, honestly, you don't even have to tell me what it is, but I know that all of us, when we got in the business, we had a goal, or we had this idea in our mind. We're going to support our kids' education. Jim's goal is $250,000 in 2019. I think it's a fantastic goal. I think it's very doable too. But, what is your real goal without settling? I think sometimes where we fall short as real estate agents is we set a goal. We'll have a number in our mind, and then we go talk to our broker in charge. We talk to our team leader, whoever you're talking to at your office that, handles some of the training and helps with some goal setting and things like that. But we go talk to them, and the first thing they say is, "Oh man, your goal is a lot. Your goal is a lot." And then the first thing we do, rather than say, my goal is not a lot. I broke it down, $250,000. $250,000. If you worked out the numbers, worked out your market, right? Let's say your average transaction was $5,000. That's what you take home net to you. Average transaction is $5,000, which is only $160,000 sales price at 3%, right? That's only 50 transactions. You can do 50 transactions. There's a lot of agents out there doing 50 transactions a year. Even if your average is $80,000, so you're making about $2,500 a transaction. Then you just got to do 100 transactions. We just got to do more transactions. But the thing is, that goal that you're thinking, $8,000 commission. Okay, so yeah, man, you only got to do about 32, 33 transactions, and you will hit your goal, right? Without a whole lot of problems, which is fantastic, man. It's fantastic. Nicole's goal is to transition from property management into full-time real estate, and I think that's a fantastic goal too. But the first thing we got to figure out is what's it going to take us. What's it going to take us you know, say for example, if we're going to quit our job, we're going to quit doing property management, and we're going to focus on full-time real estate. How much money do you need to be making to do that? What kind of money do you need to be making? How many deals do you need to be closing to be, you know, secure? You need to be making $150,000 a year. So you need to roughly make about $12,500 a month. So when your average commission in your market is how much? $9,000. Okay, so you only have to close. You guys are in expensive markets. My market's not as high as yours, but you only have to do like 18, 19 transactions. So we got to do a little bit more than we got to do about, you know, 1.5 a month. You know, a transaction and a half a month. Need $250,000 to quit your job. You know, and you know, some of our goals are bigger than others. A lot of agents, I'll tell you guys, a lot of agents would quit their job if they made $50,000, right? They made $50,000 a year, they'd probably quit their job. A lot of you guys that are working part-time, you're staying-at-home mom, staying-at-home dad, you know, think about this too. What is your goal? How much do you want to make? You know, what was the goal when you got into the real estate business? Was it just to have extra money? Was it so that you could do more stuff with your kids? Was it so that you could pay down debt, you know? But what is your real goal? I think that one of the things we forget to do sometimes is we'll think about a goal, we'll talk to other people about it, we'll feel like it's too big, and then we feel like we need to scale it down. I'm not telling you to scale it down. I think your goal needs to be something you really want. A lot of agents have set a goal that's literally to pay all their bills. And guys, it's not fun and it's not exciting if your goal is literally to pay your light bill. That's not really a lot of fun. You know what I mean? It's not something you're going to be really motivated about. So I was a guy trying to get a job with a marketing company, and they told you they needed 2 years experience. Yeah, I tell you, that's great. But I don't think that you need to adjust your goal for anyone. Now, I think that what you need to do is I think you need to work your numbers backwards and figure out how many transactions you need to hit your goal. But number one, I think you need to figure out why you got into the business and think about those things. Every time you think about quitting, think about the reasons you got into the business, right? Number two, I think you need to come up with your real goal, right? I believe goals are important. You know, one of the things Jim Rohn says that goals provide us focus. And goals drive your dreams, right? Goals, they give us the ability to hone in on what actions we need to take to get the things we want in life. You know, and the $250,000 you guys are mentioning, you know, I don't know how you come up with $250,000, but I feel like there's something attached to that. There's something you want to do. You know, lots of times for us, goals entice you to become the person it takes to achieve those goals, which is really an interesting thing. You know, I've said this before when I've talked about my coaching, training real estate agents and things like that. You know, the real estate agent I was 5 years ago didn't have the mindset and stuff to be able to train agents today to do the business that I was doing and do the type of business I was doing and to go out there and find business like I was doing, right? Sometimes when you have a goal like $250,000, like quitting your full-time job and making $250,000 to quit it, you know, sometimes it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot of mindset, you know. It's going to be a lot of mindset. It's going to be a lot of mental toughness. But I believe goals are very, very important. I believe tracking your goals are very important. You know, the problem with most agents is they don't have any goals at all. And the other problem is the agents that are setting goals. I want to tell you guys this. The agents that are setting goals, I'd be willing to bet 90% of those abandon the goals within weeks of actually setting the goals. Right? So I believe that when you set that goal, you need to constantly be in that mindset of focusing on it, reviewing that every day, reviewing what you need to do. When you break it down, and I teach a lot of this in my group coaching, how to break down your goals. But I think you need to break down that goal and you need to look at it every day. And I think you need to let that drive what you're doing. Let that drive the decisions you're making. A lot of you guys are working 8 to 5. Now, let's say, for example, you work 8 to 5. You know, some of you have an office. A lot of agents are working virtual right now. But let's just say, for example, you normally eat dinner at 6. You know what? To be quite honest with you, it's not going to make a whole lot of difference if you eat dinner at 7. You know, for a lot of you, right? I think you need to take that goal we've been talking about, and you need to talk to your spouse, your significant other, look at what you have going on, make sure that goal is important to you, and I think you need to adjust. And I'm not saying you adjust forever, Jim. I'm not saying that you adjust forever. What I'm saying is you adjust for a long enough period of time that you are going to feel comfortable quitting your job and going back full time, right? You get the transactions, you get some money in the bank, you know, you get some listings, you feel comfortable with things, right? Because anytime a lot of us and a lot of you guys that are part-time looking to go full-time, a lot of this stuff's going to be a little bit uncomfortable for you when you're figuring out goals. You know, where normally, you know, you get off work at 5, you rush home, and then you sit on the couch and you watch TV the rest of the day. You know, there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you want to do. I mean, I'm not judging what you're doing after work, but if your goal is to make $250,000 and your goal is to quit your full-time job, you're not going to be able to rush home every day and go sit on the couch and watch TV at 5 o'clock. There's going to have to be some planned time that you're going to have to work, right? And number 3 is going in that, how much time do you have to work on these goals? Okay? How much time do you have to work on these goals? Now, a lot of us in the business, a lot of us on this calls, I'm sure that you have a spouse, significant other. A lot of us have kids, right? That cuts into some of your time. But one of the things you guys need to do is figure out, like, you know, for some of you, you might need to use your lunchtime, right, to work on real estate stuff. If you're real serious about this goal and really serious about going full time, maybe you use your hour of lunchtime, right, to make calls during that hour. Then you go home and you make calls for another hour, right? You eat dinner, you do everything, you know, you put the kids to bed and whatever it is. Then you might need to spend another hour working on follow up and whatever else it is, paperwork, whatever else it is, learning the market, to be able to start getting that traction you need. But you need to figure out how much time you need to work. The easiest way to do this, guys, is to, I got a formula that I teach to build a schedule with. Okay. The first thing you put in your schedule, you get out your calendar. First thing you put in your schedule is your job, right? Because that's what's paying your bills. You put your 40-hour-a-week job, your full-time job, whatever you have going on. If you're a stay-at-home mom, stay-at-home dad, you put whatever's taking up the most of your time, right? Number 1, you put your job. Number 2, you need to put whatever family time you're spending, right? And there's going to, when you're working full-time and then you're working another job part-time, there's probably going to be some pressure on family time and family stuff, right? But guys, go ahead and make out your schedule to include this. If you guys have Wednesday date night or Friday date night or whatever it is, make sure you put it in your calendar and make sure you put it in your schedule at least to begin with, so we can figure out how much time we have to work. You know? So we got to do family time. Number 3 is non-negotiable. I can't spell tonight, but non-negotiable. Non-negotiable business stuff, right? This is your continuing education, you know, office meetings if you're going to them, whatever it is that will not change the time for you, right? And number 4, we need to put in lead generation time, right? Now, what I see a lot of part-time agents do when they talk to me is their job takes a lot of time. You know, that 40 hours a week takes a lot of their energy. Takes a lot of their energy and takes the bulk of their day lots of times, right? Then they get home. They have some family time. They sit and watch TV, whatever it is. Number three, they do the things that they got to do, right? And they talk about their business. They talk about being a real estate agent and how they want to be a real estate agent, but then they never spend time on number four, which is your lead generation time. Now, this is the time you're calling, you're talking to sellers, you're talking to buyers, you're talking to people that you think want to do real estate business. Now, this time might not be, for some of you guys, this time might not be from 5 to 7 every day, right? Or 5 to 7:30. It might be 2 or 3 days a week from 5 to 7, and then all day on Saturday and a few hours on Sunday, right? It might be, some of you guys, to hit your goals, at least to start with, it might be more than that. You know, it might be 5 to 9 in the afternoons. You know, it might be 5 to 9 in the afternoons, 5 to 10 in the afternoons, right? Because you can always email. I don't like to call anybody after about 8:30, but you can always email after that, right? But we got to figure out when, and we have to put this in a schedule. We have to make ourselves a schedule, because if we don't schedule it and we don't let the people around us know what's going on, then we're just not going to do it. We're going to get sidetracked, and we're going to be in this endless, we're going to be in the same cycle we're in, right? But we got to figure out that goal that we talked about, that $250,000 that you talked about, Jim. We got to figure out when are you going to work on making that. Does this make sense to you guys? So, yeah, and I think that's a lot of what happens sometimes is, you know, lots of times agents just set the goal, right? And then they never figure out when are they going to work on that goal. But we got to figure out what amount of time we have to work on it. So now, guys, I broke this down real quick because I just wanted to show you some, I just want to kind of show you some numbers, because lots of times we don't think about this sort of stuff until we see it. You know, I was sitting there and I was kind of thinking about it, and I don't know what you guys make at your jobs. You don't have to tell me. It's none of my business. And Jim, we'll get to that in just a second too, when to go on listing appointments. Now, breakdown of 2 hours of work. We're just going to pretend that you only have 2 hours a day, 5 days a week to work, right? That's 10 hours a week. We're going to take out weekends. So we got 30 days a month, and you know, well, I accidentally included a couple of weekends here, but we got 30 days in the month. We actually have 8 weekend days. We have 8 Saturdays and Sundays, right? So we actually have 22 Monday through Fridays. But I put in this 24 days. So we got to do something in a couple hours on Saturdays, right? So if we just work 2 hours a day, 10 hours a week, a couple of Saturdays a week, we done a little bit of work. It's 48 hours, right? And we just closed one property a month for $125,000. That would net us roughly, for most of us, depending on the office you're at, that's going to net you roughly about $3,000 commission at 3%, right? Now it's 48 hours a week. And when we break that down, $3,000 divided by 48, that roughly puts you guys making $62.50 an hour. Now, I don't know what you guys do at your regular job, but I feel like a lot of you guys that we're talking to that's listening to this, a lot of you guys aren't making $62 an hour, you know? Now, this is something I feel like is very doable in that 2 hours. Now we're talking about 2 hours of work. 2 hours of work. I want 2 hours of lead generation. Now, what might happen some of these days, right? We got 24 days. What might happen some of these days is you might set an appointment on Monday afternoon for Tuesday or Wednesday afternoon, right? So we go to the appointment, and that kind of takes up the 2 hours that we normally prospect, and you know we can't prospect every day, right? And that's what we got to do, Jim. Some days we got to figure out the schedules, and we have to set appointments around those schedules, right? A lot of people are very happy to meet with you after 5, right? Because most people regular jobs work between 8 and 5. A lot of people are very happy to meet you after 5. A lot of people are happy to meet on Saturdays. A lot of people are happy to meet on Sunday afternoons, right? So, and I'm going to show you this here in just a second here. Now, the three things we have to do, though, to figure out with our time is, number one, we have to figure out what we're doing. And I'm going to give you some examples here. And number two, we have to be as productive as possible during this downtime and when we're doing it. And guys, Jim asked me, what about showings and focusing on listings? And I'm going to get to that in just a second. So one of the other things we need to do too for these blocks of time, and this is something that I learned, I can't think of the word for it, but basically when we schedule a task, for some reason our minds and us in general, you ever have, you remember when you go into school and you had a term paper due, right? You had a report due. And most of us, what we do is literally wait until the last day. We'd have 3 weeks to write the paper, and we would literally, just blow it off. We would use that entire 3 weeks, and we would finish it literally minutes before we were supposed to hand it in. Well, everything in life is like that. When we schedule a task, if we schedule that task for an hour or we schedule that task for 15 minutes, right, we are typically going, as just people, we're going to typically use the entire amount of time that we scheduled it. Now, here's something funny too. Like some of these tasks that normally we say, oh, that takes us an hour to do, but when you have a big list of errands and a big list of stuff you got to do, you got a short amount of time and you're running around, you got to do it, right? You got to do it. It's like all of a sudden you get all this stuff done really, really fast. Well, a lot of the stuff we do as real estate agents is that same way, A lot of us will spend an hour trying to pull comps for a pricing strategy we're going to present, when really we could have probably pulled that and done just as well if we just spent 10 minutes working on it, So guys, I always recommend that you try to plan a little bit more than you can do in that 2 hours. Now, some of us, we're always going to feel like we're a little bit behind, but it's okay because we're going to be extremely productive in that short amount of time that we have to work. So what are you going to do during your work time? Guys, there's two ways to find clients. There's only two ways, really. We can either, number one, we can prospect. We can go out and look for clients, right? We can go knock on doors. We can make phone calls. We can prospect for sale by owners. We can look for expireds. We can, we can actually knock on doors, inviting people to open houses. There's a lot of stuff we can do. We can get on the phone and call our sphere of influence, right? We can proactively go out and look for people looking to buy or sell. Or number two, the other way that we can do business and we can find more business is we can market. Now, I took and I kind of laid them out side by side, prospecting versus marketing, and I want you to think about this, where you are in your business. Now we'll go over marketing first. Now, marketing, what you're doing is you're sitting around and you're hoping the phone's going to ring. You're hoping you're going to get an email. And what we've learned as real estate agents, when you get that buyer that registers on your website, just really quick, we got to stop what we're doing and we got to call that buyer really fast if we want to get results, right? Have you guys heard that? Less than 5 minutes, stuff like that. But we're waiting on people to contact us. When we're marketing, lots of times we're in reaction mode, because when they contact us, we have to jump up and we have to do something, whether it's call them and talk to them on the phone, whatever it may be. But number two, typically marketing is going to cost money. It doesn't matter if you're doing Facebook ads, if you're doing Zillow, if you're doing Realtor.com, if you're sending out mail, whatever it is. Typically, to get your phone to ring and people to call you, you're going to have to spend money. And guys, I don't know about you guys, but when I was first starting out in the real estate business, and real estate was more of a part-time thing for me, I didn't have a lot of money to spend. Raise your hand on Zoom if you're in that situation. You don't have a lot of money to spend. Having that budget like some of the superstar agents in your market where you spend $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a month, it's just not going to happen. You just don't have it. The other thing with marketing is typically the hot thing right now is Facebook ads, right? Wouldn't you agree? That seems to be the thing. Build a funnel. I'm sick of funnels, right? But that's the hot thing right now. It seems like that's when everybody says, hey, we need more leads. They say, hey, we'll build a funnel and then go spend Facebook ads. Now, the problem is most of these guys are really good at building funnels that can build one for you. They're going to want $1,000, $2,000, and then you got to spend money on Facebook ads. And I don't care whose program you're looking at. Most of these guys are not generating Facebook leads. Well, really, they're not leads. They're inquiries, right? We need to get that straight too. What you're going to get from Facebook from having a funnel is you're not going to get a lead. You're not going to get a warmed up person that's ready to go. You're going to get an inquiry. You're going to get an inquiry, and hopefully that inquiry turns into a lead, right? Patrick, I'm sick of funnels too. It's $500 a month. Yeah, $500 a month. Plus you got ad spend, on top. Not only do you have to pay for the funnel, you got to pay to get it in front of people, right? And a lot of those Facebook leads have low conversion rates. If you're converting 2 or 3%, you're doing very good. If you're converting more than 3%, 4%, then you're doing extremely, extremely well. Now, the other thing too, I've learned from 15 years of real estate is a lot of the tactics that we can market to get sellers, they typically are going to burn out real quick. Used to be property evaluation ads. Property evaluation ads, man, you could get 1,000 of them for $1 a piece. Now those same property evaluation ads really kind of suck, and they cost $12, $15 a piece if we're doing Facebook ads, right? And the thing is, they're really where previously they were pretty decent leads. Now they're not so good leads, They're not so good at leads. The general public has figured out that was I don't want to say a scam, but they figured out that was a trap. That they figured out what we were doing, But most of what you're going to generate with your marketing is going to be primarily buyers. Wouldn't you agree? If you subscribe to Zillow, it's going to be mostly buyers. Realtor.com, mostly buyers. Now prospecting is a little bit different. Prospecting, it's low cost or no cost, right? We can drive around. We can look for sale by owners. We can go on Zillow. We can go on Craigslist. We can go on Facebook Marketplace. We can go through all the Facebook buy and sell groups, and we can find sale by owners literally for pretty much $0, right? Some gas money, right? We can drive around. We can look for vacant and abandoned homes. If there's a vacant or abandoned house and grass is waist high, somebody out there probably feels like they should do something with that house, But even expireds, even if you're subscribing to something like RedX, where you're getting expired leads, it's not really a whole lot of money. $70, $80 a month. You get leads every day in your email, or every day when you log into Vortex. Now we can do for rent by owners. For rent by owners is a great source. Craigslist has tons of them every day, But a lot of prospecting, there's a lot of avenues for prospecting that are very low cost or no cost. We can call our sphere of influence. It's very low cost or no cost. I always lump open houses in with prospecting, because if you do an open house right, you're going to go around, you're going to knock on all the doors and invite everybody to your open house on Saturday. You're going to meet all these people face to face, hopefully, get them to sign in. Then you're going to follow up with them afterwards, right? I always link open houses with prospecting in my mind, because if you're doing it right, it's not really marketing. You're not really marketing. You're going out there and prospecting. And it costs you very little money to do something like that. With prospecting, there's a lot of avenues where it doesn't really cost you a whole lot of money. And what you're doing is you're not waiting around for people to call you. I don't know about you guys, but I hate waiting on people, right? But you're not waiting around for people to contact you. You're going out there and you're taking control of your business and your situation. Now, that 2 hours you got in the afternoon that you could spend working, what do you think you should do? Do you think you should spend that 2 hours hoping somebody calls you and you can call them back? Or should you spend that 2 hours going out and actually looking for people that might want to work for you? For sale by owners have always been the easiest ones for me, because I feel like it's almost dummy proof. You can find them really easy because they stick a red and white sign in front of their yard, or they take the time to put an ad on one of these online websites. But with prospecting, you can design your business to go after and look for sellers. And guys, I think that's really important, because I've done this same little analysis here, buyers versus sellers, because I want you guys to see what it looks like side by side. With buyers, how many guys, raise your hand or give me the thumbs up. Are you working with buyers today? If you're brand new in the business, have you ever worked with a buyer? Raise your hand. So the thing about buyers are, a lot of buyers, especially right now, they're pretty high maintenance, aren't they? They want to look at a lot of stuff. Very, very few times do you get a buyer that jumps in your car and says, hey, I want 123 Main Street. Let's write an offer. But a lot of them are going to want to see 10, 12, 15 houses. I was reading a post by an agent the other day, said they showed a buyer 30 houses. Man, my head wouldn't want to explode. Guys, think about the amount of time it would take you to show 30 houses, just driving between the homes. It's a tremendous amount of time. Let's just say 30 minutes a house, that's 15 hours. Number two, I believe that buying is a want. Buying is not a need. And I'm going to explain that to you. Now, most buyers, hey, I just got the comment here. I had a buyer with $100,000 wanted a $300,000 house. Yeah. Now, buying, I feel like, is a need. Buyers typically have a lot of options. They could continue renting. They could continue renting if they wanted to. They could extend their lease. They could look around and, hey, sometimes they don't want to commit. But typically people are buying a house. Now, we're excluding the people doing like 1031 exchanges or having to buy for tax purposes. But buying is really not a need. It's a want. Think about that. Buying's not a need, it's a want. Sellers can have the need to sell because they can be behind on payments. They can need a bigger house. They could be moving for a job relocation. There's lots of situations where sellers, it's a need for them to sell, right? But buyers, there's very few buyers that need to go out and buy before the end of the year. It's very few buyers that need to do that, right? Now, the other thing is, and I kind of named this again, buyers, you're really on their schedule. They may tell you like, hey, they want to buy a house before the end of the year, but, things come up. People get busy around the holidays, Maybe sometimes you overspend around Christmas and you need to wait for, tax returns to get filed, right? But you're on their schedule. You're on their schedule 100%. 100%. Patrick said just now, I spent one Easter unexpectedly showing houses for over 8 hours. When I first got in the business, I literally drove 80 miles and actually had to excuse myself to fill up for gas in between showings. Yeah. I mean, it happens, right? But you're on their schedule. There's lots of variables too, right? Let's say you got a buyer that's approved right now. They're approved right now today. The day before Thanksgiving, they're approved buyer. Things are good. Their credit score is good. Their debt to income ratio is good. But you know what? There's a lot of sales on Friday. Now, what happens if they go and, they got that credit card with a $5,000 limit that has $0 on it today? What happens if they go max out that credit card on Friday? What happens if they max out that credit card on Friday, but they got a house under contract with you and they don't have the money to pay it off? Think about that. So many variables. So many variables. So, I mean, that could possibly drop their credit score, 15, 20 points. Husband loses their job, right? All of a sudden, you've showed them 25 houses. All of a sudden, husband loses their job. He can't find another job in the same line of work, but it's hard to control your time with buyers. One of the things about it is when they call you, a lot of us feel like we have to drop whatever we're doing and we have to run out right then. Exactly. They get arrested for DUI. That's going to affect your buying, Now, sellers, here's the interesting thing. Most of the time, we're only going to meet a seller like once, maybe twice, right? We're going to meet them. We're going to do the listing appointment. Sometimes we got to come back. Sometimes we got to come back to get pictures. But typically, we're going to schedule that during times that we are available, aren't we? We can schedule listing appointments, times that we're available. It's easy to control your time, right? Now, here's the great thing about being part-time in the real estate business and having another full-time job is that while you're at your 9-to-5 job, Jim, you're at your 9-to-5 job, if you had 5 listings or 10 listings out there, all 10 listings could get shown while you're still clocked in at the job you're working at, right? You've never left the office you work at. All 5 listings get shown. Now, I think this is great. I'll tell you guys this story. Me and Laura went on a cruise. This was a few years ago, and while we were on the boat, I sold 3 properties. We were out in the Caribbean. I sold 3 properties. Right? People just sent me over offers, and I responded, and sent them over to the seller, and we got contracts executed. And I think I made $18,000 on that cruise. And just about everyone we went on, I've made way more money than what the trip cost from my listings getting contracts and offers, right? And you can't do that with buyers, because we couldn't have stepped off the boat and swam home and unlocked a couple of doors real quick, right? We couldn't have done that. Jim, your job isn't going to let you clock out to go show a couple of buyers' houses. If they do, that's a fantastic job, but most jobs aren't going to let you do that. So it's really easy to control your time if you're working on a heavy seller business, right? So now number four with sellers here that I put down, and I think this is really interesting. A lot of agents are going out there and they're trying to find the next great lead source, trying to find the best bang for their buck. The best bang for their buck isn't Zillow. It's not Realtor.com. It's not Offers.com or whatever else is out there. The best source of leads, the best source of buyer leads are from the signs that you have in the ground, right? Those are the best sources of buyer leads. And if you're marketing your listing whether it's even on Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, free places, right? Nothing big. Those listings are going to generate free buyers. They're going to syndicate through a lot of different stuff just from being on your MLS. So every listing generates free buyers, right? And I know we all get excited. We all get excited about free leads. So guys, when we talk about that and I lay it side by side, I got about 35, 38 of you guys on the call right now. Doesn't it make sense, especially if you're part-time in the real estate business, doesn't it make sense to build your business around sellers? Number one, your time is limited. Number two, a lot of people that are doing real estate part-time, they don't have a lot of money, right? They don't have a lot of money to market with. Plus, with sellers, the property gets shown anytime, right? You can show that a buyer can see the property anytime. They just call their agent. The agent goes. Most everybody has showing time or centralized showings or some sort of showing service nowadays, and it's pretty easy to set that up, and it just makes a lot of sense, right? Now I know there's some agents listening to this right now that are going, "Hey, well, sellers are hard. Sellers are hard." Sellers really are not really, really hard, And we'll get to that in a minute. I'll be glad to answer any of your questions. I got some question and answer here at the end. But number 5, there's only really 2 ways to leverage your time in the real estate business. Number 1 is to focus on sellers. Well, I put it number 2 here, but number 1 is to focus on sellers, right? Because you can have 50 sellers, you can have 50 listings, and all 50 of them can get shown while you're at work theoretically. Okay, but if you had 50 buyers, even if you worked in the real estate business full time, you couldn't show them all property this month by yourself. Guys, but that's one of the things I recommend you do. Work on sellers, and then find an agent that works in your office that you can refer buyers to. Doesn't have to be the superstar agent that closed 100 deals last month. It needs to be an agent that will work your leads, because your leads are your leads, right? An agent that can work your leads, has availability, and shows up when they're supposed to show up. They do what they're supposed to do. That's what you're looking for. You're not looking for 20 years experience. You're looking for agents that are responsible, right? But that's really two of the easiest ways to leverage the time that you have in the business. Now, things you need to work on with sellers. Number one is things you need to work with sellers is number one is you need seller leads, right? And I teach this a lot in my group coaching, and I even teach a lot about like low cost, no cost lead generation. Last week we talked about lead sources that you could prospect without picking up the phone, right? And that's going to extend, and we're going to do a couple more calls like that where we're working on what types of leads could you prospect without picking during times you can't pick up the phone, right? But leads, where to find them? You need seller leads. Like I said, you could go to Craigslist, you go to there's a bunch of places you can subscribe to Redex, you know. And number two, you need scripts, right? You need scripts. You need to learn what to say. And I'm a big believer in scripts, and I teach you how to get really, really good at scripts because I believe that if we use the same script over and over, and that's where the magic comes in, is using an effective script over and over. Because once you ask that question 100 times, 1,000 times to sellers, you're gonna know all the answers to it, right? It's the same in the job, whatever job you have now or whatever job you had before, like a waitress. When they come up to your table, they ask you, hey, would anybody like dessert? They know before they even ask that, there's only a couple answers to that question. And there's a couple answers they hear so many times it makes them sick. Just like us, think about your business. What would happen if you got really good at the objections you get every day? What would happen if you got really good when a seller said, oh, we don't want to work with an agent right now? If you had an effective strategy and an effective plan for that objection. Oh, well, we'll pay you 3% if you bring a buyer. What if you had an effective plan and effective strategy for that? What if, a lot of sellers right now are saying, hey, well, we want to wait till after the holidays. What if you had an effective plan and effective strategy to follow up with those? So those are the things I teach. Then I also teach a listing system. And I believe that you need a system that's replicable, number one, but you need a system that you're doing the same thing every time, right? If we show up at somebody's house and we just do whatever we feel like, then when our system and our plan and our appointment isn't working in our favor, it's hard to figure out where you went wrong. But if you're doing the same thing, if you have a proven effective system and you're doing the same thing at every single appointment, when something isn't quite working out, it's easy to go back and adjust a little bit. And when you're doing the same thing over and over with every single seller, what you're going to learn is the way you walk through the house. If you walk through a house the same way, you're going to start noticing that you're getting the same reactions from sellers. The questions that you ask, the way you sit down at the kitchen table, going through your pricing strategy, going through your net sheet, going through your paperwork, right? If you're doing it the same way every time, you're going to know what to expect from the sellers because there's only a few responses that you're going to see over and over again. Now, number four is honestly, it's not something I can really help you with, but you need the ability to know what you really want, the ability to know what goal you want to set. Because guys, if you're trying to make that transition from a full-time job to full-time real estate, I'll be upfront with you. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. There's going to be times that you want to quit. There's going to be, if you're trying to do it on your own, there's going to be a lot of figuring things out. And that's one of the reasons that I recommend coaching for anybody. And right now, I've got a Black Friday special that I'm already offering right now. And what I'll do for you guys in my coaching is I help you shorten that learning curve. I help you shorten that learning curve. I help you with those systems that you need. I help you with those scripts, and I help you to get really good. And Jim signed up. Yeah, congratulations, and it's fantastic. My website is laid out like a course. We do a weekly call. I do question and answer. We have a mastermind group that you can actually correspond with other agents that are in my program. But if you use this code Black Friday, the first month's going to be $20. And I'll tell you what you're going to get in that first month. The information that you get immediately without even being on the first coaching call is enough information to help you set up your business and get going this week, guys. So guys, what questions do you guys have? What questions do you have about my group coaching? What questions do you have about the stuff we've talked about tonight? So it's $40 after the first month. It's $40 a month. It's month to month. You can cancel anytime. Jim, you had a couple of questions. I'm going back through my chat here, my chat screen. Now, when do you go on listing appointments and showings? What you do, well, what I would do if I had a full-time job and I was trying to make that transition, I'd find an agent to I'd find an agent as quick as you can to work with your buyer leads, right? And I would refer them all to them. You know, maybe but you set standards. What person are you going to work with? What person are you not going to work with? Maybe you want to work with the guy that's all cash, that's looking 250. Well, you're in a big market. You said your average commission was like $8,000. Maybe you want to work with the guy that's all cash, that's $300,000 plus. Maybe you want to work with him, right? But you don't want to work with the people that are looking for 100% financing and are, marginal borrowers. They can probably get approved, but they're just going to have to make sure everything just goes exactly right. But I would set standards for the buyers I work with. That'd be number one. Number two, I would try to figure out what I got going on every week, and I'd set myself up a tentative schedule, right? Where, hey, I'm getting off work at 5, 5:15, 5:30. I'm going to be at the office or I'm going to be at home, and I would set it up so that I could work from, say, 5:30 to 7:30. That I can make calls, I could do my prospecting, I could do those things. Maybe, some days you might, hey, if you can't do it in the afternoon, you got something going on, maybe you prospect 45 minutes at lunch and, you make up that other hour and 15 minutes on Saturday, right? But appointments, I would just try to work them the best you could around your job. Typically, most people are very happy to meet after 5:30. It's convenient for them. And that's how I would do that. Lydia, actually, I do a lot of stuff on for sale by owners. One of the things I've really been good at in my career is for sale by owners. I actually wrote a book, how to be a FSBO master. And one of the things you do get as soon as you sign up is you do get my course. It was called Becoming a FSBO Master. It was a 4-part series. It's about 6 hours that focuses solely on for sale by owners. But I don't only do for sale by owners. We talk about a lot of other lead sources, but I'll tell you, during my career, for sale by owners was my number one lead source, and it has been my number one lead source. Jim's already got an agent. His office is sending buyers to. Congratulations. So I'm saying, Jim asked, am I saying to take one day a week off completely? Not really. I mean, I'll tell you, for me personally, this is kind of how I felt. Now, my career in the real estate business, I had a large team. I was doing a tremendous amount of transactions, and I put myself in a situation. I was working as close to 24 hours a day as I could, 7 days a week. Right. And one of the things that happens, though, if we work 7 days a week, every single week, or at least this happens to me, is I start getting a little bit burnt out. I will do something on Sunday if I absolutely have to. But I like to take Sundays off, but I'll tell you guys this: Sunday afternoon is a great time to call. If you can work in an hour or two of calls on Sunday afternoon, an hour or two of prospecting, a lot of people are home, a lot of people are off work, and a lot of people are getting ready for the week. So if you want to factor Sunday in, do it. You can always do short-term burst of massive activity. That's something I like too, Jim, is I like short-term burst of massive action. And what I mean by that is, like, I talked about this on a webinar that I did for everybody a few nights ago. What it is you take and you plan like 2 or 3 days, like we have coming up. Like Friday, there's a lot of people off work, Saturday and Sunday. And it's not Thanksgiving, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We know there's going to be a lot of people off work. So, how much traction would you get in your business if you went through, you took and got all the expired leads from 2018, all the for sale by owner leads from 2018, whatever other leads you have, and you took and you piled them all together and you said, hey, you know what? Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I'm going to call every lead I have. And you might have, depending on your market, you might have a couple thousand numbers to call, right? And it would be hard. It would be mentally exhausting to do it. But what I find is typically if I have 1,000 numbers, I'm going to probably get 15, 20 solid leads out of that, right? Might get more out of that, but I'm going to get 15, 20 people. Usually 1.5%, 2.5% is a good number. But I'm going to get, a percentage of those that are going to want to do something in the next 30 or 60 days. So let's say you guys done that this weekend, or you started doing that every Saturday and Sunday and just did it 2 or 3 Saturdays in a row. You took massive action. At the end of 2 or 3 Saturdays, you have 30, 40 people you're following up with, right? And then you actually had a follow-up plan for them, right? Use my follow-up master day planner. You had a follow-up plan where you're following up every single week with those people and not letting them go. Don't you think that you could probably get 50% of those listed? Over time, we're not talking about 50% of them listed within a week, but 50% of them listed within the next 30 to 60 days. If you had a solid plan where you're following up with value, right? We're not following up like some agents where some agents, they're following up and saying, "Hey, Mr. Seller, you're ready today." I don't do that. I don't think of myself as a cold caller, because the people that I like to call are people that for some reason I believe they want to sell their house. Does that make sense? It's not random people in the neighborhood that you're just going, hey, Jason, do you want to call, right? But what if we done that and we spent 60 days doing that? Now I do work my coaching. We do talk about objections. I'm actually about to record a new webinar. It's probably going to end up being a couple hours, but I'm going to go through every objection my group coaching has gave me. I'm going to give you a strategy for overcoming every one of them. One of the first things we have to do with objections is we have to figure out, is that a real objection or is that a condition, right? A condition is something you can't help. Like say, hey, the seller tells you, hey, I can't meet you tomorrow because I got a doctor's appointment. It's a condition. They got a doctor's appointment. Nothing you can do about that. A lot of agents think of that as an objection. Your typical objections is, we don't want to list right now. We'll pay you 3% if you bring a buyer. We don't want to pay a commission. Those are probably 3 of your biggest objections right there. Guys, think about that too. If you worked on the 3 or 4 biggest objections that you get 80% of the time, and you got really good at overcoming those, or really good with a strategy to overcome those, how would that change your business? That by itself, right? So I teach a lot of those things. So what do you get with coaching? Guys, what you get initially, as soon as you sign up, you get access to my website. And that website right now has about 19 hours of training material on it. It has everything you need. It has information about the four presentations that you have at every listing appointment, which is what do you do when you get to the house, your pricing presentation, your net sheet presentation, and your paperwork presentation, right? So you'll get all that. You'll get enough training there to set up your entire seller system. Plus, you're going to get some other webinars. We're going to get I do a lot of stuff where I talk about how to prospect and find free leads. So you're going to get all that stuff there too. Now, RedX and for sale by owners and all that stuff, those are separate subscriptions. They don't have anything to do with my group coaching. I'm a big fan of RedX. I've been using them probably about 12 years. Every time I've switched, I've ended up switching back within a couple of months. Now, the 100-day challenge tracker, those should be on the way, Jim. But what other questions do you guys have? Can you do a good amount of business if you only work 4 days a week? Yeah, I believe you can. I really believe you can. I think that one of the things you got to do is you got to be very protective over your time. That's number one. You have to be very, very diligent with that time on having that time planned out ahead of time, right? If you don't, what's going to happen is you're going to waste that time. I think that if you got 4 days off a week, let's just say Monday through Thursday, just make it easy for us. I think that Monday through Thursday, I think that you need to have a plan for those 4 days, and you need to have a productive plan, you know. And yeah, I think you can do a lot of business with that. I'll help you master your day for sure. So how do you when do you respond to email and voicemails? Um I think you need to time block some stuff out for that. But here's the thing about email is you can always respond to email. Um, you can always respond to email, at 10 o'clock at night, right? Now, one of the things I've done on my voicemail, and I've been doing this for years, is my voicemail always says that I'm in a meeting. Always says that I'm in a meeting, and the reason I do that is because um, number one is I want to control my time, but number two is when I have that lead generation time, right? And I have that time that I've planned. That's basically it's the time that's going to make me money, right? I don't want to be interrupted. Now, here's the thing: most people that are calling you, most of the stuff that they're calling you about, they can text you or they can email you. So I tell people that, hey, you can text me at the same number or you can send me an email. And the reason I do that is just because it helps me control my time. And now, if you're doing that, text is fantastic, because most of the time, text will condense a 15, 20-minute conversation into, 10 words or less. You know what I mean? Sometimes just a yes or no. I would get really good at that, man. If I had a full-time job and I was trying to do real estate part-time, I would really get good at, and I'd really consciously work on getting good at pushing people to text, even voicemail. I use Google Voice. So if you use Google Voice, it's free. It's free to use. And it actually transcribes your voicemails and it sends you a text and it sends you an email and it keeps them in an account so you can listen to them, 6 months from now. But it transcribes it. So I will have some people that'll call me and leave me a voicemail. I get the transcription, I see what it's about, and then lots of times it's something that I can take care of just yes or no or whatever. I can take care of it like in a quick text. And I do that. And that's a fantastic way to control your time. Use your voicemail. I think we should all be doing this. Especially with most of us being independent. Well, all of us are independent contractors, but sole. I think we'd call it sole practitioners. Most of us don't have a big team. We don't have a staff, But with us being sole practitioners in the real estate business, I think that we need to use all those sort of tools that we have available. Download Google Voice. It's free, right? It syncs with your Gmail account, syncs up with your phone, and and then with your it transcribes voicemails and then push as many people as you can to voicemail. Hey, worst case is you send them a text back and say, hey, sorry, Jim, I'm in a meeting right now. Can I give you a call in about an hour? Right? And the reason why you want to do that is because doing that is going to allow you to protect that prospecting time that you've scheduled. So what other questions do you guys have? Facebook's been quiet. Facebook's been really quiet tonight. So guys, I really appreciate you signing up. I really appreciate you signing up for the webinar tonight. I've really enjoyed it. I think this is a great subject. I like working with part-time agents. I think that it's fantastic the way that you're getting into the business, And this Black Friday special is going to be available till Friday. And anyway, as soon as you sign up, you get started to get access to tons of information. And guys, if I can help you, just send me a message through Facebook. If you have any questions after this, send me a message through Facebook and I'll help you out. So I hope you guys have a fantastic night. And if I don't talk to you before, I hope that you have a fantastic Thanksgiving tomorrow. And I'll see you guys soon. Hey, thanks, Jim. Happy Thanksgiving to you too.